Let me bring in now two experts on this situation. With me in the studio here, Colonel Cedric Leighton, U.S. Air Force retired and president of Cedric Leighton Associates. Good to see you, Colonel. Good to see you too. And joining us from D.C., Rebecca Heinrichs, who is visiting fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Rebecca, to you first. What do you make of Defense Secretary Leon Panetta's assertion yesterday? I guess it was more a suggestion than an assertion that there may well be al-Qaeda elements at work in Syria taking advantage of the chaos there. Well,
of course there is. I mean, every time that there's a power vacuum in one of these regions of the world, there's going to be somebody that steps in to fill that vacuum. In this case, we should expect that groups like al-Qaeda would jump in and do so. But I will say that I think the big thing here that we need to realize and really kind of internalize is that Russia has used these bombings that happened yesterday as an opportunity to point to their argument that that the United States and our allies are supporting the wrong guys by supporting the opposition rather than the Assad regime, which is, of course, completely untrue. And Russia is, in fact, putting up roadblocks for the United States and our allies to do more to oppose the Assad regime.
Colonel, it does seem as though it becomes a more and more tangled web that is being woven by whomever is doing the weaving in Syria. What is the situation now? You would agree, I assume, that there are probably al-Qaeda elements at work?
Oh, most definitely. I think Rebecca is spot on, and what Leland was reporting was also exactly right, because what al-Qaeda does is it seeks its opportunities and it seizes them. And in this particular case, any type of state that is a failed state or approaching the status of a failed state is fair game as far as al-Qaeda is concerned. In fact, that's where they want to be. They want to do that. That's why you see them in Somalia. That's why you see them in Yemen. That's why you saw them in Afghanistan. And now Syria is the perfect place for them to go after Iraq, after their failure in Iraq.
So, Rebecca, given that, if that is an established fact that al-Qaeda is there taking advantage of this, how on earth do we play these cards right now?
Well, I mean, I think that the United States needs to be working hard to get Russia and China on board with the rest of the international community here to put pressure on Assad. And it's still the Assad regime's fault. They are the ones to blame for creating a completely destabilizing environment where the first role of government, they're supposed to be providing protection for their people. And what happened yesterday is a horrific example of what happens when a regime like the Assad regime allows instability to fester and the violence to continue. The Obama administration needs to be putting pressure on Russia rather than trying this reset policy that has proven over and over again that it is failing.
I want to get to the Russian question in a moment. For a couple of our chats first here, Colonel. Sarah, writing as Griffin57, says, it reminds me when the Palestinians voted Hamas into power. What do you do when democracy, and I guess this is a certain sense of democracy in the uprising, produces a result we don't like, which is al-Qaeda moving in? It's a difficult point, isn't it?
It is a difficult point, because what it really boils down to is when you look at it from a nation-state and a political perspective, you have to say democracy may not always be the right answer in a case like Syria. You almost have to have a managed transition where you pick somebody maybe from the Free Syrian Army or somebody like that to take over, and it doesn't look good from the standpoint of democratic values or putting a democracy like we know it in place. But what it does do is it puts those interests at bay, such as al-Qaeda's, any other interests that are anathema to us. Those are the ones that you want to really fight, and that's why you have a transition period, and people have to understand that some countries have to go through transition periods before they get into a democratic mode.
Rebecca, can we really pick a side here and promote that side?
Well, I think I completely agree with the Colonel. I will say that there are a lot of naysayers that say that the Obama administration, the United States, is completely incapable of seeing who is the good guy or who are good guys in this situation. This is what the CIA is designed to do. This is not the first time that there has been a complicated, messy problem for the Central Intelligence Agency. Clearly, it is a mess. It's very messy, and we need to be working to see who within the opposition forces are friends and allies of the United States in the event that the United States does decide to perhaps covertly arm the opposition, which we're not there yet, and I'm not suggesting that we should be, but This is what the Central Intelligence Agency is meant to do, and I do think that they're capable of doing so.
All right. Rebecca brought up Russia, their position here. They're still standing foursquare behind President Assad's regime. One of our viewers here, All for Jury, writing in that this is, in his view, essentially a Cold War problem. It's like the Cold War revisited. The Russians exercising their power to stand up against the U.S. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would, absolutely. As somebody who saw the Berlin Wall firsthand, was stationed in Berlin and watched it fall, I can definitely agree with that. What we have to do in this particular case is confront the Russians in the same Cold War mode that we did in Korea, for example. Now, I'm not saying that we should go to war like we did in Korea, but what we should do is we should be very firm with them and use NATO and perhaps other alliances as a way to get around the Russian and Chinese opposition in the UN. I think the time has come where we have to really basically put Russia and China on the side of the Assad regime as villain A, Al-Qaeda as villain B, and then hopefully a better set of actors in the Free Syrian Army or other players to be named later. And that's what we're looking for, I think.
Rebecca, what kind of weapons in a diplomatic, economic, political sense do you believe we have to deal with Russia and really put some pressure on them to toe the sort of more accepted international line here that President Assad needs to stop the violence?
Well, the first thing that the Obama administration needs to do is stop pretending that the Russian Federation is a friend of the United States when they're not. The Obama administration needs to stop appeasing Russia. We just saw several days ago that Russian officials came out and said that they would attack American forces in Europe if we were to actually deploy missile defense systems in which we're working with the Europeans on. And then the Russians accuse Republican members of Congress of speaking in Cold War terms when they're talking about actually attacking American forces in Europe, which is, by definition, that is a Cold War thing to say and to aggress upon. So I think that the administration needs to actually just have some intellectual honesty about where the Russians are and stop this Russia reset and actually deal with the Russians head on in diplomatic ways.
Would you agree with that, Colonel?
Absolutely. I think Rebecca is right with that, because what we need to do, the only thing that the Russians will understand is a direct approach that says we will put missile defenses in Europe, a direct approach that says if you threaten us, we will basically respond, so don't do that. And that's the kind of answer that they need. I don't want to see a conflict between the United States and Russia, but it seems as if they are asking for one. And that is a very difficult situation to find ourselves in, but the only way you extricate yourself is by showing strength diplomatically and militarily.
Rebecca, what did you make of the announcement yesterday? What kind of game is being played when President Putin announced he would not now be coming to the NATO summit? Missing the G8 summit too. What's going on there?
Well, Putin is a wonderful, excellent politician. This is what he's good at doing. He basically just said that, the Obama administration made more overtures to Putin, inviting him to the White House even to have this meeting where Putin said that now that he wouldn't do so. And so I think that Putin is he's flexing some muscle. He's kind of showing off and saying that he doesn't need to do what the United States wants to do and what NATO wants him to do. And that's exactly what it is. And the Obama administration continues to respond with weakness. This administration has been absolutely terrible at picking who our friends are and who our allies are. Every opportunity there's been a chance for the United States to support our ally, to support the forces of freedom, we have failed. And where there's an opportunity to actually embolden and appease our enemies, it seems like this administration is willing to try that card.
President Putin, of course, not just an entertaining politician, but also quite the hockey player, as he showed after he won the election again. Was out on the ice. Very odd. He is certainly quite the character, isn't he, Colonel? Is there a surefire way of dealing with him?
Well, I think beyond the idea that we don't want to see President Obama riding horseback without his shirt on, like Putin did, we need to make sure that we respond to his overtures by saying, "Great, you're not coming to our meeting at the White House or at Camp David. That's fine. But here are the things that we need from you. We need you to behave responsibly in Syria. We need you to work cyber attacks that emanate from Russian soil. We need you to really disavow statements by your senior military people that indicate that they would attack U.S. forces or allied forces in Europe. So those are the kinds of things that we need to stand up to, and I think Rebecca is right to say that these are the areas where, you know, if you show weakness, you are going to end up with a real problem, a much bigger problem than what you originally had, and that's the real danger.
All right, it's a fascinating debate. Colonel Cedric Leighton, U.S. Air Force retired, President of Cedric Leighton Associates, thank you very much. Great to have you here.